equity of Indians has been stagnant. It has been lingering in about 1% from 1957 up to now.
In the first place, I don't trust those figures.
Was the PH government successful in uplifting the socio-economic status of the Indians?
The PH government was more aware about the position of the Indians than the BN government. Focus is not on improving the position of the Indians, but really on the party problem.
Public, they were not happy with the 22 months of PH government as well.
Well, if they find the PH government had failed, elect a proper, good government. But they chose a government through the back door.
There are also calls by certain quarters to abolish vernacular schools.
Whether we like it or not, it separates people.
The complaints from the society is that they become doctors because the parents spend the money. It's not they get scholarship or the educational assistance from the government.
Well, I must say that there was less effort to correct the imbalance involving the Indians. That I will admit.
That you have been very much obsessed with Datuk Sri Najib, and when you came to power, your only agenda was to remove Datuk Sri Najib.
He has destroyed the party. He has destroyed the government machinery. He has undermined the financing of the country.
Actually, the population of Indians has been shrinking. The latest census shows that they are at 6.7%.
We are not having enough children now. Before, Indians would have as many as 10 children.
Good morning, Tun. It's our pleasure to have you with us today. Tun, the NEP was created in order to reduce the disparity among races in terms of economic wealth. But after the implementation, the equity of Malays has risen from 2.1% in 1957 to about 18% as of last year. The equity of Chinese has been around 25% all the while. But the equity of Indians has been stagnant. It has been lingering in about 1% from 1957 up to now. So in your opinion, where it would have gone wrong?
In the first place, I don't trust those figures. I cannot imagine that the Chinese portion has not grown. Obviously, you can see around it has grown since 1981 to now. It has grown tremendously. In fact, the whole city of Kuala Lumpur has grown, and mostly it is Chinese. With regard to the Malays, the figure given is from 2 to 18. That is a huge growth, but it is not actually Malay. It is government agency posing as Malays. So the ordinary, the growth among the real Malays is rather small, excepting with regard to education, because the Malays were given scholarships and they did it well. Well, with regard to the Indians did not really struggle to get their share of the economic portion. They were more interested in studying law in particular, and many of them did get scholarships. Compared to the proportion of the Indians in Malaysia, many of them got scholarship. But I will admit that there were many more who qualified, but who did not get. So the thing is that the NEP has not been properly administered, and there was no focus on the performance of each community. That is why the Indian community seems to be left behind. Partly, of course, is that the Indian community representation in the government was very small. Unlike the PH government, the Indian community had a lot of ministers. But in the BN government, the Indians had only one minister. And there was a lot of bickering within the Indian party. And the focus is not on improving the position of the Indians, but really on the party problem.
So, Tun, you said the representation of Indians was better during the PH government. But actually, if you see the socio-economic status of Indians has not changed 60 over years. If you really see the statistics, the 70% of gangsters in Malaysia are Indians. And compared to other races, in terms of home ownership, we are the lowest. In terms of entrepreneurship, graduate employment and all this, it shows that Indians are still lagging very much behind compared to other races. Was the PH government successful in uplifting the socio-economic status of the Indians?
The PH government was more aware about the position of the Indians than the BN government. The BN government did not do very much, but the PH government is more concerned. And I think there is an attempt to push forward the performance of the Indians. But Indians were not particularly interested in business. They were more interested in education. And many of them were given scholarship. Admittedly, the number is quite small. So in the PH government, given time, I'm quite sure there would be more scholarships for Indians who are very fond of the professions, mostly lawyers and the medicine. The proportion of Indian doctors in Malaysian hospital is big compared to their population.
But the thing is that the complaints from the society is that they become doctors because the parents spend the money. It's not they get scholarship or the educational assistance from the government. So in that sense, a lot of them, they feel they have been ignored by the government.
Yeah. Well, I must say that there was less effort to correct the imbalance involving the Indians. That I will admit, both by the BN, and I think PH would have done better, but PH, of course, had more Indian representation in the cabinet.
So do you feel that you have missed out the chance or an opportunity to reform the country during your second stint as PM?
Yeah, I miss. We were doing quite well, actually. We have achieved many things to the point where the index for corruption, for example, has improved. But because of politics, the party was overthrown. And after that, we have governments with only 2 seats majority. That means it's unsteady. And sure enough, some manipulators in Parliament can just withdraw. You withdraw three members, the government collapses. So that is not a situation that lends to good governance, steady and stable government. And because of that, the economy doesn't perform, and social problems also increase.
But you can see the public, they were not happy with the 22 months of PH government as well. They were disappointed because a lot of promises that were made was not fulfilled.
Well, if they find the PH government had failed, elect a proper good government. But they chose a government through the back door, and that government is worse. It has only a 2-seat majority, and as you know, it was overthrown because of the small majority. And now we are still seeing the government only having a 2-seat majority. At any time, Najib, for example, can bring down this government. It doesn't give confidence to business people or even the ordinary citizens.
If that say Dr. Sri Najib is not in power, then you think BN is fine?
He may not be in power, he may be in jail, but his influence is very strong. They all want him to be, not to serve his term in jail, and they will always be focused on that. The whole idea was that you change government, he would be free. That's what he is interested in. He is not interested in good governance, in development, in having unchanged policies, all that.
There are also a lot of people accusing that you have been very much obsessed with Dato Sri Najib, and when you came to power, your only agenda was to remove Dato Sri Najib and not to really give priority for the reform agenda of the nation. Do you agree with that?
Well, Sri Najib has destroyed everything. He has destroyed the party. He has destroyed the government machinery. He has undermined the financing of the country. If you don't tackle him, you can't tackle the rest. You see, most of the other things are due to what he has done. Unless you stop it, you cannot correct the rest. You cannot even correct the economy because corruption is terrible now. Approvals take years. And in the meantime, of course, those business people lose a lot of money. If you don't correct those, the others cannot be attended to, the economy in particular. So it is important that his role be removed. He has even succeeded in turning around normal values. Where you should feel ashamed, he's telling people not to be ashamed. That if you steal money, it's all right. He has changed the value system. And this has affected the performance of the country. Our economy now is ridden with corruption right up to the Prime Minister's level. So if you don't remove him, and we can see that he's still very powerful.
And he's very popular as well.
Popular and powerful because you see how Zahid, for example, pulled him forward and pushed back the Prime Minister, which shows who is more powerful in the government.
So are you disappointed with the level of support you have got in Johor election, even though you have been emphasizing a lot on corruption?
Yeah, I'm disappointed, of course, but I also understand that people are troubled by personal problems like not having a job, not having any income, not even having food, having to leave their house because they couldn't pay the rent. And these are very personal problems which to me could be corrected if we can remove Najib and install good governance. But the voters are concerned with immediate solution to their problem. Now, they are not interested in what's going to happen when there is a government and government takes a long time to act. But they want an answer now. And this claim that BN would provide stability and all that is just something on the surface. The BN has no means of avoiding all the problems that were faced by the PH, particularly with regard to money.
So will there be a different strategy by Pejuang for GE15?
Yeah, we feel that by tackling corruption, we would tackle most of the other problems. The reason why the economy cannot grow is because of corruption. If you don't remove corruption, the economy will not grow. If the economy does not grow, people will have no job. And if they have no job, they have no income, they won't even have food for themselves. So the main problem is still corruption. But I admit that we did not focus on the personal tragedies faced by many people.
Is going solo will be still a part of your strategy?
Yeah, we were caught in between. If we go with the PH, the Malay population is averse to DAP, then they will not support us. If we go with BN, but BN is corrupt, we can't go with them. So we have to be on our own and later on find partners and see. So we showed that we have enough candidates to form a government, 42. If you are given a good number, then we can lead the government and form a coalition where the Indians and the Chinese, the Ibans and Kadazan will be brought in.
So joining with PN is an option for you, Tun?
It is not something that we would welcome because PN also is corrupt. But there are parties like Muda, Warisan, and a few other small parties.
Tun, coming back to the population of Indians, actually the population of Indians has been shrinking. The latest census shows that they are at 6.7%. So what do you think the Indian community should do to stay relevant politically and also not to be left out from the mainstream development?
Yeah. The number of Indians in Malaysia, of course, is diminishing. But the number of Indians in the government is increasing. In fact, the increase was very big when we have the Pakatan Harapan. There are many Indian ministers and many Indians were active. So they represent a much bigger population of Indians. But the actual numbers, of course, is small. So you have to tackle the question of numbers. And I think generally Indians are very fond of public work, you see. And even though their numbers may be small, but their active participation in public affairs is very big. So to solve the problem of diminishing numbers, of course, Indians must, well, uh, marry early and have more children. We are not having enough children now. Before, Indians would have as many as 10 children. But now each family gets about two children only. If they are well off, they hardly have children until they are quite mature, 30 plus.
So there are also calls by certain quarters to abolish vernacular schools. What is your stand on this, Tun?
Yeah. I would admit that the presence of vernacular school stands in the way of national unity. In most countries where they have a lot of migrants, the migrants all attend the national school, not their own language school. Yeah, even in America, Australia, or Thailand, or Indonesia, but Malaysia is exceptional in that we do allow for vernacular school, and whether we like it or not, it separates people. So if we have no vernacular school, the separation is less. We actually propose a wawasan school where at least some common activities are done together. But that was also rejected by the Chinese extremists. They don't want anything to do with the national school system. But I believe that it would be good, but I think it is not acceptable by the majority. So we would rather live with it than try and force it through.
But don't you see that the national schools actually have failed to attract the non-Malays towards national schools? But in the other way, we are seeing that a lot of Malays are going to Chinese schools. Those who are studying in Chinese schools, 15.2% are Malays.
Yeah. But if there are no vernacular school, like it or not, they will have to go to the national school. This is what happens in Thailand, in Indonesia, in Philippines, and all that. But when there are vernacular school, then the people of the same language group will go to the vernacular school. But it is also found that the Chinese language is useful for business. So many Malays realize that if in the past they had to learn English, now they had to learn Chinese. That is why they are going to the Chinese school.
So do you think it would be good to make Mandarin and Tamil compulsory subjects in national schools?
Yes, it has always been something that we wanted to promote. We thought that the best way to deal with this is to have good language classes in all the national schools, but it is optional. If you want to, you can study, we can provide. But unfortunately, the government did not carry out this policy.
Tun, you always have given a lot of priority for education system. Even you have introduced teaching maths and science in English. So are you disappointed the whole system has been reversed?
I think the whole education system needs to be relooked because I think in many areas they fail. Even the teaching of Islamic religion is not achieving the purpose that it was introduced. And then, of course, we have new methods of teaching using modern technology that has not been utilized. In fact, they reject it. See, we still depend upon the class teacher. And the class teacher may be good, may be bad. If you happen to get a bad class teacher, you fail. You see, but we can record the best lessons delivered by the best teachers, recorded on electronically, played in front in the class, and the class teacher assists in learning, and the lessons can be copied, can take home, can listen, do review, revise at home. These are modern methods of teaching. In fact, in the learning of language, for example, the electronics have been introduced and they are very effective. And yet the government refuses to even hear about the new methods of teaching.
So do you think our education system has failed to create the value system that we really want to create?
This is another problem. Normally, we learn value system from our parents. You see, they teach us what is right, what is wrong, what can be done, what cannot be done. But today, parents are both engaged. Father and mother are working, less quality time spent with their children. So the school must take over. But we must begin early. At the kindergarten level, you should already be telling the children that stealing is a crime. You don't steal because that is bad. Your religion also forbids stealing. Murder is against a crime. All those values need to be taught from the time when they were about 3 years old, so that it stays with them even when they grow old. If you want to teach them when they are already mature, it doesn't work. They will adhere to the values they probably learn from their friends, Rempit and all that, and this will stick with them. So if you want to change values, you must start very early. This can be done.
So you have any ideas that you want to propose?
I have a lot of ideas about education. That was why When I was appointed Prime Minister for the second time, I also wanted to do the education ministry, but I was told that the Prime Minister cannot hold any other portfolio. But later on, when the Minister of Education was dismissed, there was a vacancy. I thought that for the time being, I will act as Minister of Education. And I was about to introduce many changes. And then, of course, the government was overthrown.
So there are politicians claiming that in 1990s, Japanese government has paid compensation about 207 billion ringgit for bringing Malaysians to work in Burma Siam Railway, Death Railway. Was it true, Tun? Because you were the Prime Minister at that time.
No, it's not true. Those people who went there never got 1 cent, you see.
Why didn't Tun clarify it earlier when the issue came out somewhere in 2003 and it has been always there?
No, I thought this is something that that does not deserve any attention because it is absurd. The Japanese never paid compensation, and in fact, most war people involved in war would not pay compensation. Even the Germans didn't pay compensation.
So do you think the Japanese should pay?
I don't think so because war is war. And we want to, what happened after the First World War, they forced the Germans to pay so much that the Germans became very poor. And that led to the Second War.
Tun, there are 11 Sarawakians have filed suit to pull Sarawak out of Malaysia. So considering this kind of developments, do you think Sabah and Sarawak will be an integral part of Malaysia forever?
Well, in the first place, it is illegal. There is a law which prevent anybody from trying to secede from Malaysia. So if you try, you're breaking the law. Why the government doesn't take action, I don't know. But anyway, nothing has been done. I feel that Sarawak in particular feels that it is rich, that it is capable of conducting its own affairs, that it sees no reason why it should be a part of Malaysia. And of course, it so happens that much of the oil we produce is from Sarawak. And they feel that they should get the oil, not us. You see, so there is a lot of move in that direction. But I think the majority still feel, at this moment, they still feel they should be a part of Malaysia.
Looking at the current scenario, we are losing out to Vietnam and Indonesia in terms of our FDIs, our GDP, and also per capita income growth. So what the future holds for Malaysia?
Yeah, we need good governance. We don't need corrupt government. For as long as we elect corrupt government because they give you money, we will be behind Indonesia, behind Vietnam, behind Laos perhaps, and of course behind Thailand, because we have bad government. Corruption is rife all over the country, and people don't want to do business, especially when they find that the government is not stable. We see with two people majority, every now and then it may change. And when they change, policies change. Business people want the environment to remain uniform all the time. They don't want changes. There is a feeling that after I became Prime Minister, anybody can become Prime Minister. Whether you know anything or not doesn't matter. As long as you get support or majority, you become a Prime Minister. But a Prime Minister needs certain capabilities. If you don't have those capabilities, you will fail, and the country will fail.
You wear a lot of caps. You are a politician, you are an author, you are a doctor, you are also a family man. So, in your opinion, which role you have really enjoyed most?
I think as a politician, I'd like to point out that I was not a doctor who became a politician. I was a politician who wanted the, the to become a doctor so as to impress people. As an ordinary person, I was a schoolboy at that time. Nobody listened to me. So to get people to listen to me, I had to have some degree. So it is a politician who decided to make use of the degree for political purpose.
Tun, it's really a pleasure having you with us, and we wish you all the best. And thank you for your time, Tun.
Thank you. Thank you very much.